welcome to this edition of the Michael Voris Show. Michael Voris here, just to let you know before we get into it today that this episode is brought to you by Real Estate for Life. Wonderful organization. We've been associated with them since their beginning, years and years and years now. It just works very simply. A portion of your salesman's commission for selling or buying a house, he donates, doesn't cost you a single penny. He donates part of his commission to a pro-life organization of your choosing. So, of course, if you want to give it towards St. Michael's Media in Church Milton, that's great. But if you got another one in mind, that's fine too. Just get in touch with them, realestateforlife.org, realestateforlife.org. So today we're going to be talking about this whole question of shame. You know, shaming is a bad thing. There's fat shaming, race shaming, this shaming, that shaming. The idea that shame is a bad thing automatically is another one of these wokeism, wokey wokes that is completely stupid and grounded in anti-intellectualism. Completely dumb. Kind of the motto, I think you could say, of wokeism. Completely dumb. We need to figure out how to say that in Latin, because that should probably go across the Wokeism Inc.'s door. Now, why is it dumb? Shame? Shame is a natural response when you have done something wrong. And we're going to kind of reverse engineer what they're talking about here, why they want to get rid of shame, because they want to get rid of the notion that there's anything wrong, because on jumping to the spiritual side of things, they want to get rid of the notion that anything is actually sinful, that something is objectively evil and wrong. So if you say, well, that's not sinful, that's not wrong, therefore you shouldn't feel guilty about it, which means you shouldn't feel any shame about it. I remember back in the day, we used to have an expression when, two people would go, do whatever in the sexual hookup, the meat market thing or whatever, when they were leaving, it was nicknamed when they were leaving the next morning after having committed their sin, going back to wherever they were going, was called the walk of shame. Well, today you couldn't say that because there's nothing wrong with that. See how this goes? Sort of see the big picture here. Now, one of the things that people talk about today is fat shaming. Now, it falls under the big list that there's nothing wrong, everything is good, no wrong, no bad, unless, of course, you're saying what I'm saying, then I should feel shame at this because I'm guilty of whatever I'm supposed to be guilty of, according to Woke Inc. But, you look at the question, let's just take fat shaming, for example. It's being presented now as kind of a smack in the face, a mowing down of the patriarchy, because the patriarchy, white Christian men, have established this sort of archetype of beauty, and bodies, especially female bodies, but not exclusively female bodies, have to fit into this archetype of beauty. And in order to shut that down, just completely wipe it out, now we just have to accept that every single body type, I'm not talking about the person here, we're talking about a body type, is beautiful. And if you say anything about some enormously gross, obese, just ugly body, that you are therefore somehow, shaming them into, well, yeah, that actually is true. Morbid obesity and obesity is bad on so many levels, not just the appearance of it. I suppose there's probably some people out there who think, I don't know, whatever, that's hot, but no. The idea that we have to accept that an unhealthy body, which even looks unhealthy, is somehow a beautiful thing, is constantly jammed down our throats. Take a quick peek at this from the London Fashion Show recently. What paraded up and down the catwalk? That's just gross. It's gross. To present that as some sort of standard of beauty. Again, we're not talking about the person. I don't know who the people are that are walking up and down. They don't know their backgrounds. That's not what we're talking about. The whole reason nobody in that audience knows who those people are either. They're not being paraded up and down there because they're paragons of human virtue. They're being paraded up and down there to show fat, morbidly obese yuck to make you accept it. That's why they're being paraded up and down there. So the left doesn't care about who the person is, and we're not talking about the person because we don't know who they are. We're talking about what's being shoved down your throats and presented as beauty to stand in opposition to actual beauty. Now, let's talk about for a moment, because beauty, they say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Somewhat, that's true. But there's lots of other things that are objectively, besides just it looks gross, there are some things that are just objectively wrong with this. Obesity, particularly morbid obesity, is one of the leading underlying causes of loads, might say tons, tons of health problems in the United States, from diabetes to practically every chronic disease you can name. The human skeleton, each person's skeleton, is only designed to be able to carry so much weight before bones start crushing underneath it, cartilage starts to break apart. You can't walk around carrying 700 pounds of mass on a skeleton that's, 5'8". It's not built for that. And yet to present it to people as, oh, this is again, what is the reason behind it? It's to make you feel guilty. You're supposed to feel shame. You're supposed to feel guilt at the fact that you think these people should feel shame. There's even a reference from St. Paul. He tells us Philippians. It tells in Philippians, I'll rip out the Bible real quick here and read the relevant passage. This is from his letter to the Philippians, chapter 3, verse 19. He says not of the woke crowd, although it could certainly apply to them, whose end is destruction, whose God is their belly, and whose glory is in their shame, who mind earthly things. Their glory is their shame. You take things of beauty and you turn them upside down on themselves, and you pervert them. That's what he's talking about. Your God is your belly. Jam everything into it. You serve yourself. It doesn't matter. The more you participate in your own glorification, the more gross a person you're going to become, physically, on the outside, as well as the inside. To walk around and pretend that morbid obesity is somehow a beautiful thing and somebody shouldn't feel shame about that. And again, we're not talking about people who can't control this for some reason, because there's some physical reason. Most people that are just gross, fat slobs are that way because they choose to be that way. And for me or you to look over there and have a reaction like, wow, that is massively unattractive, that is massively unhealthy, and for us to feel shame at it, dude, you're eating yourself into a grave. I was in an airport a few months ago, and there was a family that, there's no other way to say it except the fat family. Just enormously gross, mom, dad, 3 kids. All of them wildly overweight. Kids, under 10. They all have their COVID masks on, yet they're all walking around, just rolls of fat coming off them. Like, is it possible you guys don't have diabetes? You're worried about catching COVID, and yet you are setting yourself up, underlying, for every kind of imaginable disease because you don't have the willpower to take care of your own body. You're just constantly stuff. I want this, I want that, I want this. No willpower, no discipline, no view to anything else. And somehow I'm supposed to accept that that's okay. No, it's not okay. I'm not going to celebrate, and you shouldn't either, celebrate people who have no willpower, no discipline, wouldn't know how to spell Jim if you gave them the first 2 letters. This is not the way the human body was designed. The human body is a temple of the Holy Spirit, and you got to take care of it. And this is true not just with eating. It's also true of drugs and alcohol and smoking and all the other things you can do to damage your body. And we're not talking about an occasional person who has a smoke or, an occasional drink at dinner here. We're talking about people who, use this as kind of their identity, and it begins to destroy the body. We are a component of body and soul. Both of those matter. Soul is obviously more important, but the body is not unimportant. It's the temple of the Holy Spirit, as St. Paul tells us. And to always indulge it, whether it's with sex or food or drugs or alcohol or whatever, it starts to show on the outside. You've seen all those pictures on billboards of meth addicts with their teeth falling out of their head, and they look like they're 10 times their age and all this. The body is a reflection. It's a reflection of what's going on interiorly in the mind, in the soul, and the spiritual life. And if you see somebody who is just grossly overweight, this person, normally speaking, again, not talking about the medical exception here or there, I'm talking about most people, Americans are fat. The city that we're in here, Detroit, is the most obese city in the United States. And to walk around and see all of this, and somehow as you look at it, you're not allowed to have a response to it being, that's gross. It is gross. It's gross because not just how it appears, but even more deeply what it bespeaks behind it. No discipline, no willpower, no understanding whatsoever that your body is a gift from God and you should be taking care of it, just like you take care of your soul and your mind and everything else. Somehow we're guilty of shaming you. No, you pretty much just shamed yourself. That's it for this week's episode of the Michael Voris Show. Hope you enjoyed it. Every Wednesday and Friday, stay tuned to Church Militant for it. God love you.